So you guys can say whatever you want, but you have not been paying attention, so you have no legitimate argument in this whole thing. This is a public thing that was on the Sean Ryan show, I think last year sometime, right around the same time that all the little girls ended up dying in the flood down in Texas, remember? So this is just previous to that happening. And he came back and did another show and said, it's not our fault. You can't blame us, blah, blah, blah. The part you need to pay attention to right here is where he starts to say you need polarizing radar to create the system where the rain will adhere. So pay attention to that.
And so nobody could really justify doing this at scale up until 2017. And what changed then was the National Center of Atmospheric Research, an organization called NCAR out in Colorado. They realized if you have the right wavelength of radar, of dual polarization radar, which if you have the right wavelength of radar, of dual polarization radar, which I'll talk about again in a sec too.
Dual polarization radar. This is what I'm talking about. There's a radar station in Binghamton pointed directly at my house. There's another one pointed in a friend of mine's location who was doing the same thing that I'm doing. Both of those are working in order to keep an area where storm systems build themselves so that they can travel. Now, on top of the travel, they're seeding the clouds with it. So the seeding is what is leading to all of the rain that we're dealing with right now. I live in northeastern Pennsylvania. That guy lives in Rhode Island. It's come all the way from Ohio. People have been getting hammered with storms and tons of rain, tornado watches, and all of this other stuff. So listen further what he says here.
Of dual polarization radar, which I'll talk about again in a sec too. But if you have the right kind of radar and you fly in a zigzag, right, or in a circle, or in your initials, and you only see precipitation on the radar in your flight track, then you can say, oh, that is definitively man-made because we flew in this zigzag or we flew in this spiral, and there's only precipitation occurring in that shape. They did that in Idaho in 2017 multiple times. And that was the very first time that people were able to show, one, that it was unambiguously working, and two, that they could measure how much water they put on the ground. And so most folks, even in the scientific community, are still catching up to speed with this tech. The regulatory community, some people know about it, think it's cool. Some people think that it doesn't exist. Some people don't know the difference between cloud seeding and geoengineering and a bunch of other stuff. But
I'm in that category.
We'll talk about that then. So to give you...
So do you get what I'm saying here? Now, the other part of this that everybody is missing, they're seeding the clouds in the troposphere. The stratospheric clouds up in the stratosphere, that is SAI, stratospheric aerosol injection. They call it solar radiation management. This is part of the carbon capture program by Yale University. You need to look these things up and fight about them because there has never been a day in my life I've given anybody else the authorization to spray me with something like this. Doesn't matter who you are, what you think, there is no amount of justification for spraying unknowing populations with God knows what. There are radioactive isotopes that people are finding in soil samples. There are all kinds of organic creatures and whatnot. I won't go into all of that stuff because I don't know as much about it as I should. But as far as it happening and being sprayed for sure, what more do you need to see? What more do you need to see? You should also be looking up Stardust Solutions because Stardust Solutions works in conjunction with Rainmaker. What they're spraying on us is a silica compound, not to mention the graphene. And the graphene is the recognition system for AI to learn through infrared cameras and the infrared spectrum. So I don't know what else needs to be said or thought about here. So you can see here, there's that blue line right here. It's, if you watch this plus sign on here, right, you see the marker at the center of the map? This line right here. This is Dallas, Pennsylvania. There are 4 different units there. There are about 5 around right here. And there are a bunch over here as well, like right around this area. So watch what happens to the purple when it crosses that path. The storms die, the static dies. Watch. So I'll go back to noon today, 11:30. There we go. Okay, watch. You see that line? Watch the purple. That's some shit. But now if you watch the wind direction there, you see that wind direction is coming from east to west. It never does that. The cloud cover is moving west to east, but something different is going on. And every time I've noticed the rain gets to me, it's because the wind direction is coming from the east. I've noticed that before. And it never does that. That's really weird. So it's maybe 4 times I've caught that now between last year and this year. But every time there's supposed to be a big, look at this thing. So you see how all the purple keeps dying after? It all ends up broken up. These big giant pockets of purple on their way. Watch. Looks like it's growing, dies. Right there. Boom. Running at me, dies. And then it starts falling into smaller pieces after that line. That's some interesting stuff right there.